If you're interested in African history, you know the story that begins in 1492. Europeans arrive in the Americas, and the transatlantic machinery of slavery begins grinding African lives into the plantation system. But here's what the textbooks skip. That story has a prologue, and you can't understand the African struggle in the Caribbean without it. Because before the first enslaved Africans set foot in Jamaica, there were already people resisting colonial rule, the Taíno. Today, we're testing 7 claims, the 7 biggest myths about the Taíno, about Africans, and about their shared history. We'll take each claim, examine the evidence, and deliver a verdict. Let's start with Claim 1. The Taíno were completely wiped out. A vanished people who left half the Caribbean dictionary behind? Interesting definition of vanished. We're told the Taíno disappeared within a generation. But if a people truly vanish, their language doesn't become part of everyone else's daily vocabulary, does it? Words like hurricane, huracan, canoe, canoa, barbecue, barbacoa, hammock, hamaca, even tobacco, tabaco. These are Taíno words. Europeans didn't have words for these things until they entered a Taíno world. Erased people don't give an entire hemisphere its basic vocabulary. So the verdict? False. The memory of the Taíno survived in language, culture, and geography. Claim 2. The Taíno left no descendants. Colonial officials said the Taíno were gone. Modern DNA says different. Beyond language, what about the people themselves? The extinction story collapses under scientific evidence. Genetic studies across Puerto Rico, Cuba, and the Dominican Republic show millions of people today carry indigenous Caribbean ancestry, especially through maternal DNA. This lineage traces directly back to Taíno and related indigenous populations. Extinction is a colonial myth. Survival is the genetic reality. Their descendants are alive today. Now, if you're getting any value out of this video, then hit the like and subscribe buttons, as that really helps the channel to grow and encourages us to keep making videos that enlighten people about African history facts. Claim 3. The Taíno story has nothing to do with African slavery. The tragedies were separate? That's like saying Act 1 has nothing to do with Act 2. It's convenient to teach indigenous collapse and African enslavement as unrelated events, but colonial records tell a different story. The rapid decline of Taíno communities through war, disease, and forced labor under the encomienda system created a labor crisis. Spanish authorities explicitly wrote that they needed a replacement workforce. Their solution? Mass importation of enslaved Africans. The system that exploited Africans was built directly on the ruins of the Taíno world. So the verdict is false. The Taíno and African histories are directly connected. Claim 4. The Taíno had no contact with early Africans in the Caribbean. No contact? Funny, the archaeological evidence says they kept bumping into each other. There's a popular myth that Africans only arrived after Taíno society collapsed. But free and enslaved Africans were present in the Caribbean as early as the 1500s. Spanish records describe Africans escaping into the interior of islands and interacting with indigenous groups. In some places, Africans joined indigenous communities, traded with them, or lived alongside them. These weren't separate universes. They were overlapping worlds. The verdict is false. There was early Afro-Indigenous contact in the region. Claim 5. Africans and Taínos never resisted together. Parallel victims? Not in Jamaica. Freedom has always been a group project. Now we get to Jamaica, where the historical evidence becomes unmistakable. By the 1500s, some indigenous Jamaicans had escaped Spanish rule and moved into the mountainous interior. When the British invaded in 1655, Africans enslaved by the Spanish also escaped into those same mountains. There, indigenous survivors and African runaways shared knowledge of terrain, food sources, and survival strategies. They helped form the foundation of the Jamaican Maroons, communities so effective in guerrilla warfare that the British were forced to sign recognition and treaties in 1739 and 1740. The Maroons weren't built on isolation, they were built on Afro-Indigenous cooperation. So the verdict is false. There was documented alliance and joint resistance. But let's be clear about what this alliance actually achieved. This wasn't just cooperation in the shadows. It became one of the most effective resistance movements in the entire Caribbean. First, the terrain. The Maroons didn't simply disappear into Jamaica's cockpit country. They turned that impossible landscape into a weapon. Deep forests, sinkholes, limestone ridges, terrain Taíno people had navigated long before European arrival, became a fortress that the British could never fully penetrate. Second, the result. After decades of failed military campaigns, the British Empire did something almost unheard of for that era. They stopped fighting. They negotiated. In 1739 and 1740, the British signed treaties that recognized the Maroons' freedom and granted them land and the right to govern their own communities. Was it perfect independence? No. The treaties came with conditions, including cooperation with colonial authorities. But the fact remains, a community of self-liberated Africans, influenced in part by indigenous knowledge of Jamaica's interior, forced one of the world's most powerful empires to compromise. So the verdict isn't just false. The truth is that the Maroons built a resistance so effective that the rules of power in Jamaica had to shift around them. Claim 6. The Taíno legacy disappeared. If this history left no legacy, the Caribbean forgot to get the memo. Far from disappearing, Taíno influence is embedded across the region. Place names like Haiti, from Haiti, Jamaica, from Jamaica, meaning land of wood and water, Cuba, all carry Taíno origins. The Maroon ideal, the self-liberated fighter, became a symbol of resistance across the African diaspora, influencing uprisings from Suriname to Brazil. Legacy isn't a footnote, it's a foundation. So the verdict? False. Their cultural and political influence persists. Claim 7. The Taíno story doesn't matter today. Doesn't matter? Tell that to the people rebuilding the culture in real time. Across the Caribbean and its diaspora, a growing Taíno revival movement is reclaiming language, spiritual practices, and identity. Many people identify as Afro-Taíno, acknowledging mixed heritage rather than colonial binaries. And understanding the Taíno story expands our understanding of the African story, because the struggle Africans inherited in Jamaica was built on an indigenous foundation of resistance. So the verdict? False. The story matters more now than ever. Every episode is a new chance to test what you know and, of course, rethink what you thought you knew. Be sure to like, subscribe, and come back next time where we test your knowledge on something entirely different.